Hey, Mark Anthony, I'm thrilled to be back together with you again. So this is great. So
Yes, yes, I am too. Hi, everybody. I am Mark Anthony Lord. I am a spiritual counselor and a minister, and trained in the ways of helping uh, all people use spirituality as a form of recovery. And I'm especially fond of working within the 12-step world because my own journey has started in the 12-step world back when I was a mere 24 years old. So I'm very grateful for the 12 steps, specifically my focus in it, which is on the spiritual side. And that's what we're here for today, to talk about that together. So really happy to be back. Good to be working with you, Tammy. It had been a couple months at least since I'd been away, but we finally worked out a system.
yeah,
We need to continue contributing. So grateful, grateful. And I'm just going to dive in. Sound good?
yes.
All right. So there's some key components to the spiritual side of the 12-step program, which are right out of the 12-step book. And the practices that they promote are prayer and meditation. These are very often confusing practices to us in the Western world, but especially to those of us who have become very disconnected from addiction for multiple reasons, from a presence of a higher power that works for us. And by the way, that's all I'm here for today. And I know that's what Tammy's here for today, is to support you in creating and accessing and building a relationship with your higher power, whatever that means to you. So we have no dogma here. We have no desire to make you make your higher power anything other than what's perfect for you. So our passion really is behind just you finding your way. So please know that wherever you are on your path of this conversation, you are welcome here. I do like to begin each gathering with a few minutes of just centering and breathing. If this is new for you for the first time, you can just kind of follow along as I'll lead the process. And then we'll complete the meditation practice with I will speak the serenity prayer, and you can receive that. You can say it out loud where you are. You can say it inside yourself, whatever works for you. But let's begin, if you can, and it's comfortable and right and good for you to close your eyes with me. If not, you can just keep them open and maybe use your breath to focus your attention into this present moment. Taking some nice, slow, deep breaths. And as you exhale, imagine your spine lengthening a little bit, creating more room for the next breath. So take an even deeper second breath all the way down to the belly, filling up the chest, stretching the body, and exhaling and relaxing a little more. And I'm going to invite you to join me in just keeping your attention on the breath. A good place to focus is just feeling the sensation of the breath come in through the tip of the nose, following it as the body expands, and as it turns around and becomes an exhale, follow that. And we'll do that for a couple minutes. Just focus on nice, deep breathing. If you notice any thoughts grabbing your attention, see if you can notice that and release it and return your focus to the breath. And imagine with me, right in the center of your chest, a beautiful flower opening up, representing your heart, opening up. And as you imagine that, imagine it releasing a wonderful energy of self acceptance and forgiveness, even if that word feels really far away to comprehend, just a willingness to ask that forgiveness be activated within your heart is a very powerful step and a good intention. So, wherever you are in your experience of life, movement begins with acceptance. So, just for this moment, accept yourself and everything in your life, just for this moment. Even that which you deem completely unacceptable, see if you can open up a little more space to even include that in your heart today, because that's where the transformation really happens. And so, with our hearts open, with acceptance activated, and a willingness to let forgiveness set us free, I speak the Serenity Prayer. God, I've got the third step of my prayer. That's so funny. Why am I blanking?
God,
God,
grant me
grant me the
the
serenity
serenity to accept the things
I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Thank you. It's my favorite prayer. So
In my head was, God, I offer myself to thee. That was the only line I was hearing, which is a third step prayer. And I was like, what is going on in my head?
you let all those other thoughts go. So
I was lost for a moment. So thank you.
I had your back. So
Thank you. All right. So one thing that I'm excited to do is because I'm only here once a month now, is to help us focus the month in alignment with the step of the month, which some people do, but then go to the underlayer of the spirituality of it. And so this month is the second month, and the focus then would be on the second step, which is truly, truly a spiritual step. So I'm really happy to be here. If you're new to it, the second step simply says, we came to believe in a power greater than ourselves that could restore us to sanity. So really, that is the step that invites us to begin building a relationship with our higher power. And it literally says to believe in a power greater than ourselves. So all we need from the suggestion of this step is something greater than our own best thinking. If you're struggling with addiction or relationship with an addict, or experiencing co-addiction, a relationship addiction of any kind, any way where you're feeling powerless, the way I've heard it and I like to say it is, your best thinking got you here to this moment, which is wonderful. But for me and for many of us, my best thinking couldn't get me out of the addiction. If it could have, it would have, because there were plenty of times when I said, I'm done, only to not be done. So I don't have to look very far. I just got to look at my own life and go, I had many, many commitments to not continue in some of the behaviors that I was participating in. And I always went back. So something within me was not powerful enough to change the addictive pattern. And the first step is what allows us to admit that, which is important. And then it's this step where we begin to contemplate and consider, so if this addiction's got me, what's greater than the addiction? I mean, that's really important, because otherwise we're lost and we're left to our own work. And the good news is that there's many different ways to develop a relationship with something greater than your addiction. And many people have said, even starting with the wisdom of a 12-step room is a great place to begin defining the higher power, because wherever two or more are gathered in the conversation of recovery, there is a higher wisdom. There's a collective wisdom of the gathering, 2, 3, 4, 20, 100. There's a collective agreement that activates the recovery program, which opens up within us whatever the next right and good step to take is. So over and over and over, I know this would be Tammy too, I'm assuming, but I invite you to, if nothing else, check out some online meetings. Go to these rooms. If you've got places in the city that you live where you can go to an actual meeting, there's such a profound something there that you don't need to name. Some people do name it as God. Some people have a particular name and relationship with it. That's great. That's their business. But if you're really at just dipping your toe to this conversation, I invite you to just begin considering this power greater than me is the collective energy of the people that are walking the path. And many a step or two in front of you, which is all you need, is someone there that is available, who knows where you've been. And I want to talk about the healing that becomes available inside of that, because when anyone looks at you, not in judgment, not with the harshness that we've been spent years looking at ourselves, when a fellow person in the program looks at us with some compassion and some understanding and doesn't see you as the behaviors or as the result of the addiction, but sees you as someone that can recover and is more than that, that seeing of you is an enormous gift. It is the awakening of what I've come to know is something that always lived right inside of me. I call it my spiritual nature. I really do. My spiritual nature, I've come to know it, is the part of me that is connected to the higher power or the higher self. God, which is used in the 12-step book, is a common word used. But that part of me is the part that I've come to realize is not addicted. That is the part of me that is really does know freedom and knows a sane way to live. And let's go back to the second step. Came to believe in a power greater than ourselves that restored us to sanity. The last part, restored us to, which means I was there. It didn't say found sanity and gave it to me from somewhere outside of myself. Restored me to sanity, restored you to sanity. That sanity is that spirit inside of me that really stays connected to the love that I am, to the purpose of my life, to the goodness, to the healing. That actually does exist inside of me, and I know it exists inside of you, which means the work becomes not trying to make that part happen. The work becomes kind of believing in it and then letting that start to dissolve all of the things from the disease that have attached on and really globbed onto your identity and made you believe it's who you are. So that sanity is what I'm talking about. And where does it come from? A power greater than myself. I really, if I can share my story with you for a moment, I was raised in a religion. I didn't experience God there. And I was convinced God didn't like me or want me. So I had a very broken concept about God. And I remember at a very young age saying, screw you, guy. And I would literally say, I remember thinking this in child's mind, obviously you can't even take care of the world because that's messed up. See how defensive I was? You know, I was like, you can't even take care of the world. I'll take care of myself. Go do your job. So at a very young age, because of my shame and because of the training and the deep misunderstanding about this spirit, this God presence, I felt rejected. I rejected God, and I took off on my own and landed in some very, 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 very dark places. So I'm telling that beginning of my story to say, I do know what it's like to not understand this higher power concept. I know what it's like to not want to have to depend upon it. because it screwed me over in the past and it wasn't there for me when I was a little kid and I desperately needed some kind of help. I get all of it. I've lived it, I've walked it, I pushed away as best I could, but this was my reality. I just landed in the back alley gutter having sex with strangers. So it just wasn't adding up. And that's where many people can relate to the idea of bottoming out. I bottomed out and I had something cracked open and I had to ask for some help. And that's where the miracles of the program started working for me. But it took years to redefine and reprogram my mind and my heart to believe that this higher power actually believed in me, to believe that this higher power really does love and care for me. I did not have the capability. I didn't have anywhere in my brain to receive that as a possibility. So that's why the words of the step came to believe become so important. It happened for me over time. You may be a person who just naturally has it in the pocket. I got God, I'm good with God, that works for me. Great. That's a great place to begin. There's still more to be explored if you're inside of this conversation around healing from addiction. So all of us can open up for a greater concept of God, one that brings recovery. And coming to believe in that is the process. One of my favorite tools to do that is a journaling exercise that I do, and it's a dialogue journal exercise, and where I just begin writing, hello, God, or hello, higher power, what's up? I don't know what to write today. I don't believe in you. Anything. Just literally start letting that voice come out onto the page. And then what happens for me is I begin to hear some other wisdom voice in me. And at that point, I just kind of indent a little bit on the page and I just start to write from that voice. So you'll discover inside you, if you give this a couple practices, there's the voice that is you, complaining, stuck, blah, 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 blah. They've got to get all that out. And once that starts to diffuse and relax, I begin to hear some other loving voice. Now, I don't think of that as another entity in me. I just think of it as the higher power, the higher self, the wisdom that is inside of me. That was my sanity prior to recovery or prior to addiction. So to dialogue back and forth in that can create inside of you one form of connection, because that's what's important when it comes to the spiritual part of this recovery life. It is to participate in developing connections. And I've got a part to play in that, taking the time, 10 to 15 minutes in the morning, to journal and to have a conversation or just blurt out all the gunk that I'm thinking. And if there's no response that day, I still showed up and I started emptying the mind and listening for another voice. I guarantee I've never had someone not be able to access some kind of response inside of them, even like, you're doing okay. I love you. I know that whatever it is, be patient. The voice typically comes in just very short, nice, simple comments that are very important to hear and to start practicing, like be patient, take care of yourself. I've gotten messages from just taking the time to journal to say, drink more water today. I don't know, it's the intuition. It's just something that is helpful in me on my path. But for me, it's, again, the connection within me to this higher self, to this higher power, requires something in me to reactivate it and to get the flow, get the current flowing. Now, that I like to think of it as the vertical connection, and then there's the horizontal connection. And both can feel scary. The vertical can feel scary because it feels silly. I don't know where this higher power is. Am I hearing voices? What's going on? Like, we weren't raised in a culture, most of us, to really cultivate a living relationship with this presence. So it can feel weird. It can take a little effort. And then in terms of connecting with other people in the program, starting to be more honest, starting to share our truth, because that's the pocket where the higher power awakens. It's in the simple truth telling. But for us, addicts, simple truth telling, not so simple. One of the scariest things to do ever, because if you're like me, I was keeping secrets from the moment I was walking. This truth telling thing, which, also put around it for me a huge coat of shame that I was sort of trapped under inside of. To tell my truth was so scary, because they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to judge me. But here's the problem. If I don't, the contraction happens again, and I don't have access to this higher power. So again, the access is taking those courageous baby steps and finding like-minded people who've been there, who are anchored in compassion, to just hear the story. And this is what happens every time in my experience. Whenever I'm in a room or listening to other people share, they aren't saying anything that I've not heard or that I judge. I really have this, I'm like, oh, I get it. Your behavior may be a little bit different or maybe a little bigger this way, but it's the same thing. And when that moment of it's the same thing, we're having the same conversation, you start to experience that connection, a sense of maybe some oneness. That's where the higher power is felt. So I'm talking all around trying to get you to consider that this presence, this higher power, it does feel a little invisible, I guess, but it's very tangible in your experience if you will give it a little bit of attention. My experience is, if I give 10%, my higher power swoops in with the other 90, like joyously, and suddenly connections are happening, a conversation's happening. I'm feeling a little bit better. I'm stringing together a little bit of time where I'm away from the addictive patterns and the behaviors. Those are the simple miracles that we're seeking and wanting in this path of life that we're on. It's just to get those moments of reprieve. And then those moments of reprieve can turn to hours and maybe a day, and God willing, days and weeks and months. I mean, it does add up if we continue to show up, and if we continue to increase our belief that there's something greater. And again, I just want to recap that a little bit, and then I'll toss to see what the questions are or whatever. But the something greater, in my experience, again, absolutely loves me, does not judge me, doesn't even know me as the disease. It knows me as the words that live inside me. It knows me as its own. Love knows love. And so this higher power, the more I spend time with it, the more I cultivate, the more I can breathe, the more I can feel okay. And that's what activates compassion, which begins dissolving the shame, which begins changing the behaviors. So that's my download for today. What do you
That's
got?
some great information. I wrote some stuff down, as you know, I always do. But I've been around the tables a long time. I don't ever remember hearing the love that I am. You said that, and I was like, I love that, because like that's what I want to be, is the love that I am. I'm not just the addiction. I'm a doer. It's really easy for me to have my self-worth be connected to my achievements, and this reframes it for me. It's the love that I am, and I will do things that are in alignment with that, but fundamentally, that's who I am. I also wrote down, my higher power knows me as its own. And I was like, oh, and if I am that love, then my higher power knows me as that love. And that I'm just, I think, trying to live in alignment with, my higher powers. I love the group conscience, or the group as a higher power. I've never been a fan of, and this is just me, but when people go, you can use the doorknob as a higher power. Well, that to me doesn't represent anything. I know my addiction was absolutely my higher power, because like everything was focused on the addiction. And I, like you, grew up in a religious, community and experience and all of that, and had to, for myself, find a path away from that. My recovery higher power is not completely, is a 180, not a 360, a 180 from where my growing up, very punishing, wrathful, the God, that I grew up with. It was all about sin. It was all about how I wasn't achieving, I wasn't doing right. You can never live up to that. And so all that shame and everything. So to learn in recovery, and like you said too, it took me some time. It wasn't, instantaneous, but I was trying to remember, and I thought, I remember probably between a year and a half into recovery, having that longing again, for, not even again, longing for a connection that I knew wasn't going to be just people, here, on earth. So I started being willing. So that was my first step, was I was willing to explore what that really was for me, and to set aside preconceived versions of that. As you said too, it's also been a journey. I have learned more, even in the last 10 years, all, and question, because I believe that my higher power is totally good with me going like, I don't get this. I don't, like you said, don't believe in you today, or whatever it is. My higher power is big enough to handle any of my distress, or anxiety or anger or whatever it is, and and can love me through all of that. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think I'll take a pause for a second.
Okay, okay, cool. Because you said a lot of wonderful things. I appreciate that. And um, I do believe the evolution of coming to believe in a power greater than ourselves, which really, another word, it's a religious term, but it's a very spiritual term, is faith. Our faith increases. And I love the simple definition of faith as being focus.
Mm.
Faith is where you focus. If you focus on what isn't working, you're going to believe in that and believe in that, and it's going to grow and grow and grow and grow. If you focus on something positive, which is, if you focus your attention, that is going to grow and grow and grow and grow. So we increase our faith by increasing our focus on what we want to experience. So taking the time, that's what I'm saying, it requires something from us. But my faith today, my expansion and my belief in my higher power is so, I could give you words that would, I can't explain. I begin to lose words to explain the oneness that I feel, the complete unconditional love that is for me is mind blowing. It literally blows my mind. And I have this sense that, and for me, that experience is a forever expanding experience. That's kind of a bottomless, like, how much love are you? You can never limit that. You can never limit how vast the love is that we actually are. And again, love to me is synonymous with, because that's a word that's been very messed up in our world. So, love to me is just synonymous with sanity. Return to sanity, return to the love, the natural state of love that I am, return to the natural state of connection that I have within me. Again, that's what sanity means. There was a time when the addict didn't take over my life. Maybe that time was, I don't know what you all believe. Maybe it's your spiritual self before you incarnated. Maybe it was just the first 2 weeks of your life before the family insanity took over. I don't know, but I believe prior to any disease, and this is a disease, and I think it deserves that understanding. Any disease, there's a point in a person where prior they didn't have that disease, and so even babies born with diseases, I believe their spirit doesn't have that. So that's what we're returning to, and that part is, to me, the delicious part of recovery. I also want to add real quickly that um, I believe this is the gift of the program. You know, I have normal family members. I put in quotes because what is normal, right? They found a way to function in their world the way that they are, and that's good for them. But their experience is narrower. They may not, they didn't have the darkest of lows, so praise whatever for that for them. But they also, in my experience in relation to them, haven't experienced the highest of experiences of their spirit either. So I believe as far down for as low as we go, we have the opportunity to go that much higher and even higher. So to know myself as a truly presence of spirit, to know myself as someone who's whole, perfect, and complete in my spiritual nature, and to begin more and more and more living from that. That's what we're talking about here. And I believe that it begins with the second step, coming to believe in that. So, other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, resonates. I like our paths are so similar. I have lots of normal, and that have continued in their religious whatever. But my experience is that I've had the opportunity to grow deeper and more personally, in my spiritual, my favorite step is the 12th, and we'll get to that. But having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we're not promised anything else. We're promised this. And so to me but that's life changing. And I'm 100% willing to have gone through the depths of what I had to go through to get to where I am now, because I'm so grateful. I've got lots of people that, are agnostic and no judgment for them, but sadness, because I don't honestly know what I would do if I didn't have that to, as a grounding point for me, I was thinking, those little voices, so willingness, but I was out running this morning and was, I'm not good at sitting and doing mindfulness, but when I'm running, that's a very good connection point, hiking, like those kind of things. And I find that my mind will go to those places, and my message, was very clear today, was trust and obey. And I know that's an old hymn for those of you that were from it, but without the musical fanfare, I was like, it's those very simple messages. I just have to do the next right thing. Like, cause I get caught up in my spinning of you should see my desk. It's notes. But like it's all fine. I just have to do the next right thing. And it's those really focusing, like you're talking about too, faith is focused. So I thought that was fascinating, because I feel like those messages help me refocus, which makes sense. Then it's helping, layer on, for my faith and my deepening of my understanding, of what my higher power is for me. But I need those really simple, like 3-word messages. Drink more water, so
Yeah, exactly. That's how I know it's a higher power. It's
yeah,
very
well,
practical.
and to be able to to know that because they talk about that small still voice within, and like that voice was completely messed up and completely smushed for years. So to learn to be able to trust that. Now, for a long time, I had to go, like, Mark, this is what I'm hearing. What do you think? I had to touch point with other people
Mhm.
But now I've been around long. I still like, there's still things when I go, I think I need to run that by someone else. Great. That's all part of my, oh, sorry.
Oh,
Um,
but-
it's all part of my higher power process. Um, but most of the time, like you're talking about with the higher, the vertical connection and the horizontal connection, if I know I get that sense in my gut of like, I need to check this one out, or this isn't right, or this, just move forward with that. And to have that freedom that, all of this has given me, this amazing program, to be able to trust my gut again, because everything, my guts, my brains were all hijacked, to my addiction before.
oh,
So such a huge freedom, and a gift.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. So here's a little, I'm going to put this in there, this little second step prayer. And it's very, very simple. I just found it online, by the way. I'm new to this one, but I like it because it's very simple. I pray for an open mind so I may come to believe in a power greater than myself. I pray for humility and the continued opportunity to increase my faith. I don't want to be crazy anymore. I like the last line.
I do too.
I
Yeah.
think that's great. But I love the introduction from this prayer. There is a humility, and humility doesn't mean humiliation, which is what happened to many of us. Humility is just really kind of an opening downward. There is a sort of, my ego needs to get out of the way. My bloated self needs to kind of shrink and open up so that something new can come in. If I'm so full of myself, and I'm so full of what I think is wrong with the world and what I think everyone else should be doing, if I'm so full of judging God and higher power and having all these stories, there's no room for recovery to get in. And there's no room for some new idea, which means I stand the chance of acting out again eventually. That's been my experience. I never want to project that onto someone else. But if I were a betting man, if someone was so full of their own opinions and beliefs that there was no room, they're not being humble. And when we're not humble, we're missing the gifts that are available to all of us, everyone walking the planet. When we're humble, when we're just open and we allow our faith to increase, life starts working better. I've seen it more times than I can count in my own life and those many, many, many that I've taught. So again, I'm going to read this second step prayer. And I'm going to invite you to even close your eyes for a moment and really breathe it in. I'm going to go a little slowly so that you can really breathe in. So the second step prayer, breathe this in. I pray for an open mind, so I may come to believe in a power greater than myself. Breathe that in, so that I may come to believe in a power greater than myself. I pray for humility and the continued opportunity to increase my faith. I don't want to be crazy anymore. So breathe that in. That's a simple way to begin your day. I really believe that's the prayer in the morning tees me up for a better day. And, come what may, come what may. Like Tammy pointed out, we're offered a spiritual awakening. It doesn't mean shit's not going to happen.
That's for darn sure.
Yeah. So there's, I release the fantasy that it equals life not having challenges, but I experience the fulfillment of life without addiction. So that's the best gift. And this prayer is a lovely way to begin building that connection. So I introduced the simple journaling process. Try journaling with your higher power, higher self, call it whatever you want. See what that's like, to see if you can create a dialogue. And also consider just having this prayer close at hand on your heart. Say it in the morning, say it throughout the day. It takes 5 seconds. Close your day with it. Spend this month in a willingness to deepen in your relationship with the higher power and growing in your understanding of what that is, what that means to you. And I assure you that will be a month very well spent. So that's what I got today. Anything else for you or anyone who's here attending? If you want to add a question or a thought, we're
Yeah,
here.
yeah. The Q&A is at the bottom of your screen or the chat. I did copy and paste it onto a document so out of the chat, so I can print that off for myself and keep it handy. So, and if those of you joining us, if you haven't got the ability to do that, email me and I'll send it to you in an email as well. And you probably can find it online as well. Everything's online. So
Everything's online. And again, I want to reemphasize, like, if you remember nothing else, just the last line. I don't want to
don't
be
want to be crazy anymore.
your higher power can start there. You know, I mean, it really, it's beautiful. My higher power itself, it meets us wherever we are. You know what I mean? Like, it just, there's no judgment. There's no judgment. So please, to the best of your ability, stop judging yourself. It's key. So that's me, Tammy.
I think that was awesome. So we don't have any other questions. So I will look forward to seeing you the first week of March.
Yes.
And we'll talk about step 3.
Yes, another wonderful spiritual step for sure. And to everyone listening, whether you're here live right now or listening to it another time, please know that and I speak for me and Tammy from this moment, hold you in our prayers. We absolutely know that you are not the addiction. You are not anything that's happening to you or in the throes of it. There really is a power of recovery and sobriety. And we hold that for you with all our love. Yes?
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Peace and
Thanks,
love.
everyone. Bye-bye.